Welcome to the Entrepreneur Master Series with the real Jason Duncan. Thank you for joining us today. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, get a pen, a piece of paper, and be ready to take notes because this is the Entrepreneur Masters Series. Jason Duncan will be with you momentarily. Get a pen, get a piece of paper, and get ready to take notes. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Masters Series. This is the real Jason Duncan. It is Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022, and I've got a treat for you today. So I'm glad that you're joining us. I've got a guy here today I'm going to introduce in just a second. He's in New York. I'm here in Tennessee. We're both playing. He's probably smoking his cigar. I'm only holding it to pretending to smoke because my wife would kill me if I smoke in the house. Actually, I wouldn't like it either because this room is not set up to get the smoke out. But we're having a little adult beverage. We're having some cigars, and we're going to share about how to use storytelling today. So let me introduce to you Hank Norman. So Hank Norman is the founding partner of Two Market Media. They're a full service media partnership group that builds powerful media brands and businesses with well-established and rising personalities. And for over 25 years, Hank has helped his clients through all media verticals, including radio, television, publishing, and the web. His clients have gone on to produce best-selling books, nationally syndicated radio shows, and a wide media following, like millions of followers. He's a TV producer and a development executive. He's considered one of the top media coaches in the world. He helped launch the Oxygen Network and the daytime talk show, The View. He's built personal brands for clients such as Steve Harvey, Barbara Walters, and Grant Cardone. And he's also the former director of development and syndication at ABC Disney. So welcome with me today, the one and only Hank Norman. So come on camera there, Hank. There he is. What's up, Hank?
The real Jason Duncan. Finally, we got the real one.
We don't need to play around with the fake. So we got some guys and gals here today who are entrepreneurs, and this is what this is about. This is the Entrepreneur Masters Series. We want to use this opportunity to do a deep dive into some tactic, some practical application of some skill that will help entrepreneurs perform at a higher level, to make more money and to work less, work less, make more, whatever the more is, more impact, more freedom, more choices, more money, whatever it is. So we got some group of people that are here live. And then there's a lot of folks that are going to be watching this live on the replay, or not live, but on the replay. We put it on LinkedIn, YouTube, that type of thing. So Hank, what's going on? Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the details for today.
Well, what I love about this, not about me, because who cares about me, right? It's about what can happen when dealing with someone like me. And I think what's been awesome through social media is been entrepreneurship being amplified. I mean, Grant's the perfect example, right? When Steve and I met Grant in the Hollywood Hills like 12 years ago now, the idea of posting to YouTube was, brand new, and he had already started doing it just because he's crazy. But that idea of letting people see you, it went from, like, if you were the business owner, it was all about the business. And what social media changed was, if you're still using that same model of like, the business is important, you're missing the full value of how people not just come to know you and like you, but actually trust you. Why do they buy from you? It's because you're sharing, you have a story, you have an entire curated version of yourself out there where people can get to know you, and you're not present in that moment. This whole other way of people meeting you that has transcended what the wildest expectations of what the internet and what, the internet's a fad for nerds, and great, Amazon sells books. Isn't that cute? Yeah. So yeah, I remember my first job in New York City was right when Jeff Bezos started that. The AOL was taking off. Bezos was taking off, and my first job in New York City, coming from, I grew up in Maryland in cornfields and shit. And I remember I was a temp at Citibank, and these guys were like, Jeff Bezos doesn't know what he's doing. This isn't going to work. And I'm like, okay, well, sure. And it shouldn't have, right? He was so leveraged and so in debt for so long. But he's a prime example, right? He's a star. Elon Musk is a star. I mean, Elon Musk is on Twitter more than I am. This idea that, oh, somehow you're exempt as an entrepreneur, as a business leader. Elon's doing it. Grant's doing it. Like, if you really want to be in the game, get in the game.
So how does one get into the game initially? So they got people that want to get into the game. They don't know what to do. You're famous for saying hit record, but is there another way to get in the game?
Yeah, well, I was going to give you the side angle to press record, because getting in the game, I've now gone, since that cropped up probably at the first Growth Con with Grant, what I've encountered is everyone, including my trepidation, the fear of like, what am I supposed to say? What's appropriate? What am I supposed to be doing? And I think it really starts with giving yourself the permission, right? To be like, what I'm up to is enough. That me sharing what I'm doing, what I'm up to, my business, my service, and now telling the story of how my product impacts you. What's the problem you're solving? How does your product and you as the human conduit for your ideas and that product, telling that story, letting us in, behind the veil, all the stuff that, in all honesty, to answer your question, is where you get started is inside the feeling that maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this is too much information. Maybe this is this isn't business anymore. Like, it can't be just about the business, not anymore.
I think it's interesting you say give yourself permission, because there's this syndrome, the imposter syndrome, that we hear talk about a lot. And a lot of people who are in a public figure, or who are CEO or founder of a small or growing company, they get this imposter syndrome that they don't give themselves permission to step into the limelight as the expert in their space. Why do you think people have that mental block, that imposter syndrome?
Well, particularly as it relates to social and what we're talking about, telling your story, getting people just to know you, you have to move beyond your dumb product. Like, I don't necessarily care about your product. Most everything that I purchase now that isn't simply functional, but is of a higher value or is of something new and I don't understand it, like new technologies, new ideas, new fixes, I have to trust you. I have to know you well enough that I'm going to start taking a leap of changing my behavior, changing my buying patterns, changing how I'm showing up. and you feel like an imposter because you got into business for whatever reasons you got into business, and you're running a business, and you may not feel qualified to open yourself up as much as social media actually demands, and that people on the other end of the camera would like. That's the demand. And second of all, it's a brand new muscle, which is, I don't care about what you sell. We've talked about this so much. It's like, I don't care that you have product you have to move. That's not my problem. It's now you have to become this other version of a business person, which is like, how do I have to show up so that I'm showing my interest in problem solving for the customer? On some level, social media is really registering how much you care, that energy and passion you have for actually helping the people you create your product or service for. There's a lot of room for imposters there, because maybe you don't care that much.
Well, I think most people do care. And I think that's the problem. We care too much about what other people think. I think Osho said, one of his famous quotes was, the greatest fear that we have to overcome as mankind is the fear of other people's opinions. And I know that I've dealt with that as a business coach. I built a very successful business and then exited that business and then went into business coaching. And I thought, well, who's gonna hire me? Who's gonna talk to me about helping them grow their business? And who am I? Like, I'm still the guy that graduated White House High School in 1993. Like, I'm still that guy. And how are they going to see me? So that imposter syndrome, that fear of other people's opinions, certainly has a lot to do with it. How, like, you're going to tell us today about how to use storytelling to sell anything. How does storytelling play into what we've been talking about with this idea of imposter syndrome, giving yourself permission to get out there, hitting record? How do you think storytelling plays into that?
Well, it's everything. In order to tell your story, it isn't just the Simon Sinek and the why, and that's a piece of it, and a big piece of it. But actually, what social media, your future customers, potential customers, and even existing are interested in is the story of impact. Is the story of, show me. This is a show me, right? Through this little lens, I want to see it. I want to experience it. What does it look like? What's the story of the impact you and your product have on your customer? Tell that story, dude. You're literally coming up with, how do I make a commercial that shows you how great not just how great the toothpaste is. Like, watch any toothpaste commercial, watch any commercial on the air right now. And I know none of us with Netflix and streaming and DVRs watch very little commercials, but it's always the same and will always be the same, which is, it's also, how does it fulfill something in that person's life? What is it? The storytelling is so important, and you have to embrace it as an entrepreneur, because I need to know the emotional impact, the feeling I get from using your service or product. And that takes time. That takes practice. You have to be an imposter. You have to get it wrong. You have to just peel back the layers, allow yourself to show up imperfectly, learning here. Let me give you the biggest permission I can give you ever. And I have to give it to myself constantly, which is, it's okay to teach the thing you need to learn the most. Where you have the most deficiency, where you have the biggest problem, ideally your problems also somehow align with the thing you're offering as your service or part of your service. If it doesn't, then, well, not just good luck to you, but you got to find it, because there's got to be some element to that. Because what the fuck are you doing what you're doing if it's not that important to you?
Yeah, well, I just wrote that down. That's good. Everybody should write that down. Well, you have permission, as he just said. It's okay to teach the thing you need to learn the most. And anybody who's ever taught anything, you know that you learn more when you teach it than when you absorb it from other people or sit and listen to other people. The law of discovery tells us that we learn more from what we discover on our own, as opposed to what people teach us. So go teach the thing you need to learn. That's great. Tell
As
me
a teacher, as a coach of coaches, somehow, I don't know if anybody does what I do, but I coach not just media personalities, but they're also coaches. I coach the top coaches in the world, the Tim Stories, the Mel Robbins, Siri Lindley, who just spoke to 800,000 people at a Tony Robbins event. I coach her. Helping people really tap into, I'm showing up for you because I'm likewise fucked up. That's the entire thing. If you're not teaching something that really matters to you, then what is it that you're interested in overcoming for all of us, for you, for us, for the collective of the people with this problem that have this ailment, that need this service or product? You have to find that story as part of who you are and what your business is, or you're just not, you don't even have the, so that's why you don't know what to talk about when you press record.
So what is your story, Hank? Tell us your story.
Well, it really has, I'll keep it as brief as I can. And it's a constant evolving thing. And the pieces that have come to light for me most recently are the reason I teach this piece of it, which I've boiled down to actual human connection one-on-one, is looking in that lens and making a connection with the single other person on the other side, is because I've just found myself in a lifelong pursuit of learning empathy, learning how to actually show up as someone who cares, because that just wasn't afforded to me. My dad was super authoritarian, very strict, and being only brought up in this one way up until my mid-30s, I literally just thought, not only was that how life was, but I just treated life as something you just reacted to and you went into the next thing. I never even had the idea or the thought that I should be thinking about what the other person is thinking. I know it sounds crazy, but it literally is true. I was that wounded. I was that broken. And I've been on a journey all of my life to figure out why I didn't fit in, where I was going, what was going wrong, why were things happening the way they did. And in starting to as a media coach, and in getting people better at speaking to camera, which meant getting them better speaking to the people on the other side of the camera, meant I started to realize, oh, I'm teaching connection. I'm teaching empathy. I'm teaching all these things that I'm not good at. I'm literally the last person that should be teaching any of this, but in my mind. And being stuck like that made me have to figure a way out for myself, that I found ways of, how can I learn this by showing other people how to do it? And then I started to change how I showed up in order to help them get better. And I've been just media coaching just media coaching. I mean, I found myself doing it when I was a development executive for years. And then my business partner, Steve Carless, brought Mel Robbins into me when I was a development exec at ABC. I signed Mel to a holding deal to train her for TV. And in starting to work with Mel, that 13 or so years ago, began that trajectory of my career where I'm just going to train other coaches. And ostensibly what it became is me realizing I was empathy and connection deficient, and I'm teaching other people. And I've changed more over those 13, 14 years since meeting Mel and Grant than they have.
So you gave yourself permission to teach the thing that you needed to learn the most, which is connection and empathy.
I had to earn, I felt back to the beginning. I'm an imposter. Who am I to be teaching these things? I don't know anything. Not only do I not know them, I found myself to be immensely deficient. I thought I was like, I am an imposter. I'm still learning.
But is that really an imposter? Isn't an
We feel
imposter
it,
one who
but
pretends to be something they're
that's what
not?
makes the word so interesting when we say it, right? Imposter syndrome means that's a self-imposed thing. Nobody walks around going, you don't accuse someone else of an imposter syndrome. That's something you have. That's your thing.
Yeah.
That's your insecurity.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, so when you started working with, for instance, Mel Robbins, and I think most people watching this would know, or at least have heard of Mel Robbins and the 5-second rule. She's famous for that, and she's done a lot of other stuff, but that's her kind of her thing. How did when you guys were introduced, what was the story of how she became somebody that you and Steve were interested in? Hey, this lady's got a message that we can craft for the benefit of human society.
Not shockingly, it was her story that Mel is on a trajectory personally to help other people. She had done that as she was a lawyer, became a public defender. Like that piece of her personality to really have a desire to help other people. Even when she became a coach, when I met her, she was a coach to Fortune 500 execs. A reporter had talked to her, put a quote in Inc. magazine, and in a little postage stamp in the corner of Inc. magazine was Mel's picture. And Mary Duffy, who was then the executive producer of the Donnie Deutsch show, called Mel and was like, hey, this was a quote. We'd love to have you on the Donnie Deutsch show. And she panicked because she had never done, at that time, there was no social. We didn't have smartphone. We didn't have anything. And she had never done any TV or had never been on camera, had never done anything in the media. And she freaked out about, what am I supposed to, what am I saying? What am I doing? I'm an imposter. How do I get ready for the camera? She called a friend of hers who said, I know a guy, and her friend put her in touch with Steve. When Steve met her, he immediately saw that potential in Mel, and he took her out to see who else would see Mel's potential at the time. I was one of those people. I signed her. Scott Greenstein at Sirius was one of those people. He gave Mel a drive time radio show on Sirius. And I told Steve and Mel, I said, this is great. Like, just use radio. Let's just treat it as TV. I had, from The View and from all the TV I had created and produced, I was like, radio's awesome, dude. It's an hour long, A block, B block, C block, D block, hard breaks, ins and outs. Like, this is the perfect training ground you have for being bigger and taking your message and your story public. How do we start to craft what you're up to? Mel, to answer your question more pointedly now, is Mel was always on mission to solve other people's problems. Just like you hear Grant say, he still says it to this day because it's so ingrained in his DNA. It's not a story, it's the story. Grant was trapped, still partly feels trapped in the middle class. Even as a billionaire, he hates those ideas. He hates what he learned. He hates what his mom was taught. He hates everything that made him feel less than, stupid, lied to. And that story of he's not going to take it for himself, and why he's learning the things he doesn't know about real estate and money and all the lies he was told being kept down in the middle class, he's going to share them with you. And that has just, that mission of Mel's and Grant's, that story of their mission, of what drives them, of what they're pissed off about, of what they're course correcting in the world, is the biggest reason for their success.
Well, I think that for people like me and any entrepreneur who follows people like Mel and or Grant, you can see that there's this meteoric rise that they have achieved over the last several years. For Grant, I remember paying attention to Grant maybe 10 or 11 years ago, maybe about the time you met him and how that started going. But you know, he was just a sales coach guy on YouTube. That was pretty much it. And he had Grant's Rant on these YouTube channels, which was great. I actually showed those to some of my team meetings with the company that I was running at the time. But over the last few years, he's turned his status into something even more. I mean, he's, as you said, you know, he's got over $1 billion under management now with his Cardone Capital. And primarily what I'm hearing you say, Hank, is that he's doing that because he's relying heavily on his story, telling his story so that he sells the story of what's going on. So how do we, as the non-meteoric rise guys, the pre-meteoric rise guys, how do we use storytelling to sell anything?
What are you fixing? What problem are you solving? It all starts there. That feeds back to why you're doing what you're doing. What problem? What is the problem you solve for people? And then asking yourself, why is that important to you? And then when you start to understand the importance of what you're doing to you, now you can start to tell the story to other people. Now you can, that's your story. That's the reason you wake up. That's the reason you have the business. No matter how much in the grind you are, no matter how much overwhelmed you feel about the business and making it work, there's a center, there's a heart, there's an emotion to it, or you wouldn't be doing it. And not that you don't have days or times and whatever the reasons are that it's a pain in the ass. That's part of a story. That's not the story. The story is your drive, the thing that you're fixing for others. And how does it also match and come back to what are you solving for yourself? Why did you get in your business for that reason? What's the reason? What are you doing?
So when you say, hey, what problem are you fixing? Because you've coached me for the last year on having a better media presence, being better on camera. I think I know what you're talking about, but for the sake of those who are watching, what does it mean to know what problem you're solving? What are you talking about?
Help me break it down. I can't leave my bully pulpit. I don't know. How else do I say it? You tell me. I don't know. If I don't know how to say it any less. That's it. You tell me.
So I think what you've instilled in me over this past year of working with you as a coach, it's about, okay, what you do is one thing, but what you help the other person accomplish is the other. So what I am, I'm a business coach. One of the things that I am is I'm a business coach. But how do I help other people? Well, I help other people live the life that they really wanted when they started businesses to begin with. And so if I am going to go into the market talking about my story, I need to tell my story in the way that, look, I was trapped. I built a business that I was trapped in. I found myself working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Sure, I was making good money and I didn't mind what I was doing in the sense of the overall picture, but it wasn't what I signed up for. It wasn't that I didn't want to be trapped in the entrepreneur life. So many entrepreneurs get trapped by the things that they're doing every day. So for me, to answer my question to you is, what is it that I do to help people? As a business coach, I help you work less, make more. Like, how do you work less as the entrepreneur, but make more impact, more choices, more money, more freedom, more control?
Because you had to figure that out for yourself.
I did.
That's a key. So you hit one of the tenets right there, right? This was something you figured out and you're like, oh man, I see other people with this problem. I can help other people get through this problem. That is the primary motivator of you saying, hey, I had this problem, I've figured out techniques that have gotten me out or getting me out, same thing. And now I'm going to tell that story. That's the story you started to share. And I think it's super powerful.
Well, so when you know what you do to help other people, getting that in the phraseology and the messaging to get it out in the world is a little different. I mean, and I know that we took a long time to get my messaging down to the exit without exiting. But then we also understood after working and living with that for a while, that doesn't connect in the way that we want it to connect. So now the slight tweak in the messaging for me is, hey, I will show you the exact techniques as an entrepreneur to work less and to make more. And the more is defined as, of course, as I said before, more money, more time, more freedom, more choices, more control, whatever it is, the more is more impact. If you want to do those things, then I can show you how to work less, how to be involved in the business less. That figuring out that message, that's hard to do. It was painful, and it still hasn't 100% resonated with the audience that I'm trying to reach. But
there's two pieces, right, Jason, in that figuring out your story, what you stand for, that is a big piece of it. And you have that, you found that, you got that, and you're clear on it. Now what happens next in the phase you're entering now is the phase I'm in, is the phase we're all always in. Mel's in it, Grant's in it. What am I up to now? What's the message and the marketing that keeps intact who I am? Like I'm found my language and I understand myself. But what's marketing language now? How do I actually literally put a hook in to something emotionally? How do I get people to feel seen and heard, that I understand them? They feel like I get them. They know I know what it feels like to be in their position, and I have the answer for that. That marketing angle of running different ads, using different language, that's the next layer of playing with running ads, watching your click-through rates. To me, that's where funnels pick up. All the things that used to piss me off about going to Grant's growth cons was having Russell Brunson follow me and then go, and then on this slide, I literally turned around to watch him and he goes, and in this slide, this is where your click funnel is. And here's a blank hole where you put your video. And he's like, just put your video there. And I was like, yeah, that's where a year's worth of work goes in a video where you coherently and concisely state everything you stand for that makes someone want to click. So yeah, click funnels, but without the prior work, it's just a click funnel.
What do you think about click funnels?
I mean, they work if it's like anything, right? It's like a diet. Hey, the diet didn't work for me. Yeah, because you didn't work it. Like click funnels work for you when you work them. Like buying click funnels and thinking it's the answer is not what click funnels does. I know Russell wants you to think that, and he's rich because that, but in my opinion, Russell Brunson is lying to you.
That's another quotable quote. Russell Brunson is lying to you. Why do you say that?
Because click funnels don't get you shit if you're not ready to tell your story. Go ahead and buy it. You'll find out. Everybody comes back to me in the end, Jason. Don't worry about it.
So learning to tell the story. So first of all, you said that in order to tell your story, you have to give yourself permission. That was kind of step one. You got to give yourself permission to tell the story. And it's okay to teach those things that you need to learn yourself. So what are the other tips?
Problem. Start in your personal problem. That's the permission, right? To tell your story is to start in fallibility and to start and say, I had or still have. I still have the same problem, dude. I'm a better communicator now. Go to my YouTube page and watch the video literally from this exact room. I shot it yesterday. I just put it up yesterday. I just watched it and was like, oh, I could be so much better. I teach the best communicators in the world how to communicate better, and I'm still on a journey to becoming a better communicator. That's okay. Business people in particular bring this idea to the table, which is, I got all my shit together. I have the answers. Part of the imposter syndrome is, oh, I'm positioning myself as the answer guy and having the solution and my product and service, and I'm the answer to your problems. Therefore, I have to be in complete control. I have to be fully formed. No, you have to be willing to show us you're still on a journey and in a process of learning. Complete opposite. That's the permission.
So now that let's assume for a moment that we do give ourselves permission, what next? What do we do next to use storytelling to sell better?
Well, now there's two pieces to storytelling. You got to tap into your story and telling that version that we started talking about mine and you started sharing yours. And then the bigger piece is, what's the story of your product? How does it actually impact other people's lives? That's the big version. Like, how are you changing lives? How does your service acumen insight, how is that helping people? And how I coach people in that and through that, as you well know, is the media rewards above everything else is face-to-face coaching, teaching, mentoring. What would it look like for you to walk? Like if you're a plumber, remember the plumber? Do you remember the plumber that stood up at Coach Bert's lodge and asked me a question? Do you remember that guy?
I don't, no.
A plumber stood up. I was going to tell it again if I was going to bore you. A plumber stood up at Coach's Lodge where you were there, and he goes, "I'm just a plumber. What am I supposed to say?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, tell me about what's a normal sit look like for you?" And he's like, "Okay, normally someone will call me and they'll tell me what the problem is. And I know it's take me about 15 minutes to solve it. I book them for a full hour because I know 45 minutes of that time is going to go to me talking the housewife off the ledge and making her feel better about she can get her day started and ways around how this inconvenience of the clogged sink, toilet, drain has messed up her entire day." And I was like, dude, that's the perfect story. You're showing up as a plumber and you're taking care of your client's emotional needs. That's who we want. You're not just showing up and plumbing. You're showing up knowing you need to spend time and energy and care. You care. You have to tell that story. If you could show me you walking in and helping somebody, what it is to not just plumb and fix their immediate problem, but fix the real problem that you're spending 3 times the amount of time on, her emotional distress around her problem. That's the plumber who cares, the caring plumber. How is that? That's so clearly brand defining. It's insane.
Yeah. And when you talk about those service jobs, those service industries, they are the ones that typically think they have no story to tell. They have no differentiating. Hey, we just show up on time. We do the work good. We don't charge you too much. But there's more to it than that. And I love that's what you're saying about this, the plumbing, the caring plumber.
Yeah. He was like, "I don't have a story." And then he told me his story. I was like, there's the story.
I love it. I love it. So let's go and dig deeper. So you got to give yourself permission first, and then you got to talk about how your product or service absolutely and really changes lives in a real way. So how else do you use storytelling? What's the next step on using storytelling? Or are there others?
So storytelling at that level and telling the story. So we're using production language like a producers, right? And saying, "Oh, tell the story of your product." Well, I don't want you to just tell it to me. That's a one-off. Like the plumber standing up and saying, "I take care of your emotional needs." Okay, maybe. The story is in the showing, not in the telling. You ever hear that? Like TV, like movies. If you've taken any screenwriting course or read any book, the first thing they're going to tell you is, don't tell me, show me. It's a visual medium. That's the biggest twist for business people, because I want to see it. I want to experience it. Allowing me to experience working with you, that's what a sale is going to look like. The reason you see a lot of footage of Grant standing in front of the class, the reason you see a lot of footage of Mel teaching, that's what it looks like to engage with that person one-on-one. That's when you know you want to hire them. That's why Grant has billions under management of other people's money. They trust him because they see him show up. They see the story. He's shown them what it looks like for him to take care of you. Not only does he have the information, and you have to have the information, but that's just the beginning. It's not your information that separates you. It's not the steak. It's the sizzle. What's the other piece? Show me you actually taking care of me on an emotional level, what it looks like to work with you, to have you show up at my place. How are you different? There has to be some differentiating factor that takes place on an emotional level. It's happening, so show me. Take a camera and follow yourself throughout the entire process. One client from beginning to end. I don't care if it's 1 hour, 1 week, 1 month, whatever it is, get that and then deal with condensing it down into something that other people can consume. But you have to get it down. Here's the thing. I made myself watch the video I made yesterday back just because that's part of it. Making the content, putting your story out there, giving advice until you see it back and sit in your own audience. That the biggest growth you're going to experience as a business person and a storyteller is that objectivity, is what astronauts named it when they went to the moon, the overview effect, this ability to look from the moon down to Earth. And they were like, ask any or watch any show. There's shows on like Nat Geo and shit. It's all about, look, just Google overview effect and there's shows about it where it's like your life is forever changed when you objectively look back on it and say, that's what I look like. That's what I look like showing up and helping and working with somebody. That's me. And now you get to see what other people see. Now you get to take control of your life at a level you've never had before, because now you see the nuance and the detail of how you show up as another human being, one-on-one, and connecting to someone, not just selling them something, but helping them. When you see that, when you see your process, that's the actual birth of storytelling, because now you can take, first and foremost, you can finally take control of your own narrative of how you show up. That's the biggest switch that this phone has handed us. You have the ability to see yourself and say, I'm going to choose to show up differently and highlight the pieces and the parts of me that are the biggest impact on my clients and customers, so they can really see how I'm better and different than everyone else.
How do you work that out with permission? So if there's coaches watching this and they're hearing you say, okay, so I just need to video myself coaching. How do you work in the permission with the client to allow that to happen? What do you recommend?
The easiest one is the one everyone hates the most, but you got to get out of your own mind, which is you give it away for free. Get someone just to sign on the line that is dotted so that you can record them. And when you realize you're making a commercial, you're making something that's going to live and you're going to use pieces of it, you're going to grow from it, you're going to use it as for your own version of sales, that you're not giving anything away for free. The value you're going to get out of that video, out of that session, out of that one version of you showing up is so incalculably valuable to you as a person, as a business person, as a coach, as anything, that you're going to be able to change. And then you're going to be able to show it to other people. There's no price to put on it. It's invaluable. Make it happen. Pay someone to clog their drain, and then pay them to show up at their house and pay them to unclog their drain so you can show people. That's how valuable it is.
Wow. You know, what's interesting, you were making a comment a moment ago about when you watch yourself, the overview effect. When you watch yourself do something, you see yourself in a different light. I know that for those of us that grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, before cell phones were so ubiquitous, we weren't taking photos of ourselves, we weren't taking videos of ourselves. We don't know what we sound like. But I remember back in the day, if I recorded my voice on something and listened back to it, like, oh, that's what I sound like? That's terrible. Because the way it resonates to our brain, we don't hear it the same way other people hear it when it's not resonating through our brain. So I think we're all past that point, right? We're all past the point of we now know what we sound like because we're watching ourselves on our phones all the time. But here's something else I think that watching yourself would help you, just this is my idea here, but when I started recording a podcast, I started videoing and audio recording a podcast in December 2020, and I've done 80 plus episodes of my podcast. Well, when I started listening to myself and watching myself do the podcast, I would go, holy crap, I have all these little interesting tics that I never knew I had, these things that I would do. And because I saw them and realized I was doing them, I made a change. I changed because I didn't like the way those tics were working. I thought it inhibited the conversation. I didn't like what I was saying. I didn't like the sounds I was making. I didn't like some of the stuff. And I think in the similar vein, what you're talking about, Hank, is that if we will press record and watch ourselves do what we do, whether we're plumbers or business coaches, watch ourselves do what we do, I think we'll get a lot of feedback, valuable feedback from the overview effect. And oh, that's what this looks like when I do this. Okay, I need to make some twists and some changes, which is why I think you are encouraging us to record ourselves doing it. Am I right?
Yeah. And the painful part is I have recorded a lot of stuff. Well, coach didn't give me access to it, so I didn't watch that speech. I've given a lot of speeches, dude, like a moron. I've never seen them. And the ones I have access to. I've never seen, I don't think I've ever watched any of my GrowthCon speeches all the way through. None, not a single one. That's how dumb I am.
Well, if anybody watching right now live, if you're here with us live on Zoom, if you've got a question for Hank, why don't you go down to the Q&A bubble at the bottom of the Zoom link and or the Zoom window and click the Q&A and ask a question, and we'll answer that live here in session. So Hank, if people are watching this, they've heard you say, give yourself permission. Yeah, they heard you say, how does your product or service actually change their lives? What impact does it have? And then you said, show them what it does, not just tell them. What else do we need to know besides those three things on how to use storytelling to sell better?
I mean, the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit I saved to last, because it's the easy, which is the one everybody wants to do, and still because it's easy to do, and not everybody wants to do it, but it's doable and a lot of people do it, is the story through testimony. It's the story through contact. When we do this, did we do this for you? Because we started doing this recently. Did we do this for you? We offer this now as a service because it's so valuable.
I don't think so.
You give us a list of your top 10 past clients.
Oh, yeah.
And we go to them and just get testimonials. The story of what it's like to work for you. The idea of a Google Yelp review in person has a lot of value. Like that story from another person. Like who does, dude? I don't go to a cigar shop. I don't go to a restaurant without looking at what people are saying about the restaurant. That story, it determines whether I go there. Like that story is so important. If you're not actively cultivating the collection of clients that have moved through you and your company and their stories, you are missing the easiest storytelling that has the most impact that there is, bro. I mean, like it's great, and no one does it, but it's so important.
Yeah, yes. So on my website at therealjasonduncan.com, if you go and look, there are testimonial videos in there, and a lot of those were directly as a result of your team calling on. I gave the client's name, calling on my clients, and doing this short 2-minute video testimonial, and they are powerful. They do help, and I need to do more. As a matter of fact, I was at the Standard Club downtown here in Nashville a few weeks ago, and had two brothers that own a business together that they're also members of the Standard. They have been, they come through my group coaching program. And I walked into the room where they were talking with another gentleman. And I said, hey guys, how you doing? And they chit-chatted for a second. They said, yeah, we were just sitting here singing your praises. I'm like, oh, really? And then one of the brothers starts talking about how much they learned in the cohort, how much it helped them. And he just went on and on. It was very flattering what he said. And I looked at him and said, dude, can you say all that again? I'm gonna get my phone out. I need to have this for my website. This is really, really good. But yes, having the testimonials. So I would encourage the people that are listening and watching this, whether we're here on Zoom live, you're watching this on the replay, or we're also doing this live streaming on Facebook right now. So for those of you in Facebook land, thanks for tuning in. But if you want to do something better for your site and your products and services, you got to go get testimonial videos. And it's just really simple. I mean, just tell the people to hit record, press record, just say, what was it like? And then anything you don't want to edit out, you can edit that. You can edit that out in post, right?
Don't use any of it. If they tell you suck, who cares?
I had one of my really good clients who's been through my coaching program and is now a part of my mastermind. So he's a great dude, very good client. He gave a great testimonial, but one thing he said in his testimonial was completely different than what I teach. And I don't know why he said it. I mean, it was probably just habit. He's used to saying it. And so I had to call the editors and say, hey, that 1 second that he said this at 2 minutes and 10 seconds or whatever it was, you got to delete that out. Because that's not what I teach.
I don't do that. Yeah.
I don't do that thing. Well, hey, tell me a story. So Grant Cardone is probably the biggest personality that you've worked with. I mean, he's just a big personality himself. He was on Undercover Billionaire last season, and a lot of people know who he is. He's in the billionaire status now. So what's one of the coolest stories that you can tell us about your interactions with Grant?
Well, I don't know if it's cool, and I'm sure you know it, because to me it's it brings this our conversation together full circle, which is story is the only real. We've done a lot of work with Grant in a whole bunch of different areas besides helping him start to put the growth cons together and all of that, logistical stuff. But the story I tell and I tell it not because it's some great story. It's not a great story, but it's about story. It's about Grant's personal resistance to telling people his personal struggles. At the time, he did not tell people he had an alcohol problem. He did not tell people he had a drug problem. He did not want to personally dwell in the past. He didn't want to dwell in the past, talk about the past, and he didn't want to have anything to do. His personal belief was, if I spend time and energy in negative emotions, that's what I'm going to attract. And I don't want that client. I don't want that person. I don't want that. Like, he's like, I don't want that. Like, I don't see it being of value, me telling people how fucked up I used to be. And I was like, here's the thing. I can't tell you what to believe and not believe, but I can tell you what you're saying is not true for the media. If you're using a camera and you want to connect with people, you becoming real, raw, vulnerable, and telling people what you've been through, they will see pieces of themselves in your story. And that power, that connection through your story is going to take you from where you are to where I believe 10x. Like, I take full credit for the power of Grant and 10x, because he's like, okay, I'm going to do it. He's like, begrudgingly, he's like, I'm just going to do it as an experiment. If I don't see it has any uptick or any value. And the next day he called and was like, you're right. People are really responding to this. And he never looked back. And he may or may not even remember that. I sat on his patio at his condo in Sunny Isles and looked him in the eye and was like, you're going about this wrong, dude. If you want the heights and the connection and the level of people interested to know you, to like you, to trust you, you want that at the level you say you do, you have to tell and share your story. And I convinced Grant to tell his story.
Is there a particular way that you encourage people to tell those personal parts of the story that is appropriate and fit for public consumption, as opposed to someone just going and just dirty laundry being aired?
Well, there's the fun of it is, the nuance I have to it now is because of Simon Sinek. A lot of people are like, yeah, I get it. I need to tell people, I need to explain my why. I need to tell my story. And it's like, yeah, you need to tell your story, but your story could just be these things that matter to you. What I teach people to tell is the story. There's a way of narrating and picking and choosing. This is not a biography. Like, I don't need to know 100 different things and all the, then you got bit by a snake and then your dad trapped you in the closet for a week. Like, is any of that important? Like, I know you went through it and I know it was a tough time, but how does it apply to what you want me to understand about you and your business? And when you tell the story of what you went through and how it applies to your acumen, your insight, your takeaway, your advice, your product, your service, its impact on me. What's the story that ties you, your pain, to your actual problem that you're solving for me? When you dissect that narrative of the story you are telling on behalf of me that includes you, not the biography, not everything, not a laundry list of crap you went through, but the actual version of a story that ends up making me understand why you do what you do and how good you are while you're learning it and doing it continuously. And now it's the pruning of those ideas. It takes time. There's, again, back to the perfectionism and feeling like a phony. You just got to start doing it and then pruning it. When you go back and watch, you'll be like, I don't even think that's important now. The only way to do that is start.
Yeah, and that's that's the advice for everything, right? The only way to do it is start. You got to do it. You're going to learn it through failure. Failure is a much better teacher than success. You've got to tell it the first. I remember you and Steve were coaching me when we were first started working together, and you guys were like, "Okay, you just need to get on camera and you tell your story." And so I did a version of that probably half a dozen times before we got to the one that was like, okay, this is the one. This is the version of it that is going to be the best for public consumption. And that's now on my YouTube channel. So I think that people, like you were saying, Hank, you just got to do it. Press record, do it, put it out there, do it several times. It'll be a while before you get it honed in.
And here's the thing, and your experience is 100%, and I agree with you. The nuance I add to that is, by doing it and putting it out there, other people are helping you. They're going to comment and say, this resonates for me. And you're going to learn through watching yourself back and watching people's connection and understanding of your story, what parts matter to people that connect all the dots. It's only through, it's what the piece people miss the most about the power of social media is that it's actually an act of co-creation. It's listening to, like Evan Carmichael taught me. I coached Evan Carmichael, and Evan taught me a lot, because Evan's thing is, go back to any YouTube video, and he's like, when you look at the analytics and you see at minute 329 where there was a spike in people viewing that, he's like, that means people are going back and watching that idea. You now know, out of a 10-minute video, the single idea that's lighting people up. You know how much that's worth, that information? We used to run Nielsen ratings on the Tony Danza show when I launched it at ABC. We paid millions of dollars for this information to get Nielsen ratings, to know when to show Tony what was working, what wasn't working in a show. You have all that information at your fingertips. Tell your story. It doesn't fucking matter. Go back and watch. Where are people paying attention? What parts are getting people interested, exciting? What are they going back and watching again? All those analytics are available to you. This is a process of co-creation. Allow other people to inform you in comments, in the analytics, what matters to your story, and amplify those pieces.
I wish more people had access to people like you. I mean, I think the coaching is such an important part, which is why I engaged with you guys when I did. It was part of what I needed. So if people wanted to get in touch or access you, I put your hanknorman.com website into the chat. But is there a more specific way that people could follow you or get in touch with you or hire you as a coach? I mean, how would you encourage people to reach out?
In any way, I end up personally seeing anything, like, just slide into my DMs anywhere, and Instagram, Twitter, it don't matter. I'm so easy to get in touch with. So yeah, if somebody wants to get in touch with me, it's not hard to do.
Well, I would, we got some people that are here live. Again, I want to say, if you guys have questions that you want to drop in before we close out the show today, go ahead and drop those in the Q&A box down at the bottom. We'll answer those live here. No matter whether you're a coach, a service provider, a business owner, CEO of a corporation, whatever it is that you are, if you're wanting to know how to use storytelling to sell anything, this is your opportunity. We got Hank Norman, who is one of the top media coaches in the world. He's helped launch things like the Oxygen Network, the show The View. He's worked with Steve Harvey, Barbara Walters, and Greg Cardone, as we've talked about, Mel Robbins. This is your opportunity. So if you've got a question you want to ask, drop it in there. Hank, what are the questions that typically are asked when you speak or when you speak at conferences about like this or workshops? What are people mostly curious about?
It depends on what I talk about, but as of late, it really does, because I've realized the center of what interests me and where I actually have the most impact on people is not just building their self-confidence to get on air, but is actually improving their empathy and connection to other people. So, and a lot of that does go back to childhood trauma. So I end up having in storytelling, you're revisiting these stories things you had to overcome. So I do spend a lot of my time in helping people unwind their trauma? How do I make sense of what happened to me? Very deep, heady. Like if you want to know the depths of the conversations I end up having at conferences, Mallory just posted one from the Vegas Growth Con, and how it just a conversation of her catching me backstage in the VIP room. She said that just happened. I think I just plopped down at the table because it was just her and the table was empty, and I wanted to eat something after I came off the floor. And if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see Mallory talking about how that changed her life. That I was just like, dude, this, when she just started asking me the questions that, like, what do I do? How do I, what should I do with my life? And I'm like, as she said in the part I remember out of her paragraph she wrote, I was literally like, what are you doing? What do you mean, what are you doing? And she was like, and so mostly I just get people into action, to shortly answer your question.
Well, I know that my sessions with you on a weekly basis, I joke about I should just lay down on the couch and let you let you ask me questions. It's like a therapy session. It's really, really good, because it is getting into that. You know, some people have trauma and others have lesser versions of that, what we would call trauma. I know that one of the big issues that I dealt with that you helped me kind of face head on was I had a partner that I had to terminate from the business, and it was the most painful experience of my entire life. And I hadn't really talked about it because I was, I guess in part of it, I was embarrassed about the fact that it happened because he and I were friends, and when we had mutual friends, and I didn't like that I ended up having to do what I did. And I know there's no way he will ever understand why I did it or my motivation for doing it. But so I didn't want to talk about it. I remember being interviewed on a podcast early on, right after that happened. And the lady interviewing me was asking me questions, and I had to say, listen, I don't feel comfortable talking about this because it was too raw. But now that I'm more free to share that, I think people go, oh, wow. So you've dealt with that type of trauma, to use that word, trauma. And yes, it was traumatic. It was the worst year of my life. That year that I terminated my former friend and business partner from the business was absolutely the worst years. 2019 was the worst year on record for me. I thought 2020 would be the bounce back year. Well, guess what? That was, COVID had, and the government had different opinions about that. But now I freely tell it. I still don't dive into all the details, but I tell, what happened. And I honor the non-disparagement agreement that he and I signed. He has not done that. And he's gone out there and blasted me, which has made other people think terrible about me. So I'm having to keep my end of the bargain and live with integrity, even though he chose not to. So telling that story is really important. And we got a question in from one of the people here live with us on Zoom. Wendy asks this: can you speak to the importance of showing versus just telling?
Innumerable. Like there's no telling, is you just saying something, and now I have to take that at face value. And we all know that, sure, maybe you can do all the things you claim to do, but when you watch, go to Grant's most watched, just click on his YouTube channel, go to videos and sort by the videos that have been the most watched. One that's in his top, and some of his most recent are in the most watched. But one that's not a recent one, I'll give you the title of it. I'll click on him right now. There's Grant Cardone. Videos, sort by most popular. It is now ranked. What's the ranking of this? Oh, it's dropped down. It's in the top. I don't know what number it is. It's in the third row. It's called Actual Live Sales Call Sales Training. 3.1 million views 9 years ago. This is Grant showing you. This is not him telling you, hey, this is how I would help someone. This is how I help people. This is not him telling you how he helps people. Go watch Grant show you how he takes someone with an objection to paying his company money, and he overcomes that objection. That's him taking his tools, taking his advice that you hear him say and tell all the time, this is where you get the sale. This is where you're like, Grant's the guy. How did I got to learn that? When he shows you how it's done, there's no comparison. You can, you know that. You can tell your kids till the cows come home how to do shit. They're just going to do what you do. They're modeling you. They're doing what you do. If you see your kid doing something, that's on you. That's because you do it. You somehow created that. You can tell them till you're blue in the face. Don't tell them, show them. That's the big, there's no compare. There's not even in the same league.
Good question, Wendy. Good question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, I think the law of discovery, I mentioned this earlier in our program today, is that, you know, we learn more from what we discover than what we're taught. So the discovery process is really, really good for all of us. And you got to show people so that they can discover it on their own. They're not going to discover it on their own by you just telling them about it. And that's a hard thing especially for coaches or life coaches, or it's, you know, how do you show people how you do that? I think that one of the things you do it, the way you do it is through testimonial, which was your fourth step today. But
I want to see your advice working. I don't want to hear your dumb advice. I don't want to hear how someone else had success with your advice. I don't know them. Just show me. Show up in front of someone and do what you claim to do. That's my favorite. Like, everybody, you know how many times I've heard this? Oh, this happens to me all the time. I just don't have it on camera. Okay, great. Go get it on camera. Why don't you have it on camera? The magic you do, the thing you're selling, the thing you want me to buy, you have zero evidence of it. Okay, that's a little strange.
So there you go, Wendy. Showing versus telling is so important. We've got to be better at showing. The show and tell part of our lives needs to go back to more showing than telling. The telling, just think about what show and tell would have been like in third grade. If all you do is just show up and tell. You didn't show anything. You didn't say, these are the stitches I got from when I had this wreck on my bike. Like that's a better show and tell than let me tell you about the wreck I had.
Exactly. I don't need a book report. Make a movie out of it.
All right. Well, let me review as we kind of close down the episode today, the 4 steps that you gave us on how to use storytelling. Number 1, you got to give yourself permission. You got to give yourself permission, and it's okay to teach the thing that you most need to learn. So you've got to give yourself permission to be out there telling those stories. The second tip that Hank gave us today is how does your product or how does your service actually change lives? It's not what does it do, but how does it change lives? The third step is show me. Don't just tell me, which we just talked about. Show and tell, not just tell. And then the fourth is the story through testimonials. Use people's testimonials to help sell what it is that you do. And getting those testimonials it's easier than you think. It is a little bit more, there's stuff that's got to happen to get those testimonials, but they're very, very, very important. And if you go to any website today and you scroll through the website of people that you're trying to buy from, there's going to be testimonials in there. Why aren't you doing the same thing? So how to use storytelling to sell anything, including your business, right here from Hank Norman. Hank, I'll give you the last word today. Any final comments or advice you want to give to the audience before we sign off for today?
Share the thing you think and feel shouldn't be shared. It's not going to feel like you want to. You wouldn't be changing your behavior. You wouldn't be growing. You wouldn't be open, honest, vulnerable, authentic, and sharing something about you if it was really easy to do. The whole point is that people see you revealing something that's difficult. And unless you're meeting that threshold for yourself, you're not meeting that threshold.
It's really good. That goes to vulnerability, doesn't it? It's about being vulnerable, being transparent. Authentic is an overused word. I call social media contrived authenticity. We're trying to be authentic, but we have to contrive it in such a way that it actually fits within the algorithm so that people will see it. So it's not being fake, it's being authentic, but you're contriving it. You're having to meet it. And I think that what you're saying there, share the thing you think shouldn't be shared, is about being vulnerable, being transparent, and being authentic. So those are really good things. So Hank, thank you so much, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed the time that you and I have spent together as you, my media coach, working with me on how to get better in front of the camera. And I hope that my ability in front of the camera has improved over the years since
immensely, dude. In all honesty, dude, you're an amazing host. Like, kudos to you.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from somebody like you, who's Steve Harvey and Mel Robbins and Greg Cardone and Barbara Walters and doing The View and Oxygen Network. Like, that means a lot to me, a whole lot, because I love doing this. As a matter of fact, if I could figure out how to make money doing this, I'd probably do this all the time, but I haven't figured that out. I haven't figured that out yet, but thank you. That means a lot. So thank you for being here, for sharing your insight, for sharing your wisdom. I know that it's been a blessing to those that are here live on the Zoom, also who are watching live on Facebook, and then the people that are going to watch the replay later. But before everybody goes, I want to make a comment, and then I'm going to give Hank the opportunity to make personal comments about what I'm about to say, because I know he's an inside baseball. He kind of knows what I'm talking about. But one of the things that I do is I help people work less and make more. And that's what we talked about at the beginning. And Hank has helped me kind of work that message into reality, because as my story goes, I started a company back in 2010, developed a multi-million-dollar company and had ups and downs, and that terminated a business partner through that, which was terrible, almost went bankrupt as a result of it. But at the end of the day, I was trapped by my own success. And since I exited the daily operations of my business, I figured out how to do that without selling the company, which is the coolest thing ever. I still get paid, still get the tax benefits. I get to do what I want when I want. I get to do other things. Like, I'm about to buy a motorcycle dealership. Oh man, I'm so excited about that more than anything else right now. It's the most exciting thing in my life. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was still working 70 hours a week running ELS. Do I like ELS? Yeah. Do I love the employees? Absolutely. But I figured out how to exit that without selling it, exit without exiting. Well, so now as a business coach, I'm showing other people just like you how to do this. If you want to get that, if you want to see exactly how to delegate better, how to invest your time and focus your time better, if you want to know how to hire the right people, if you want to know how to use virtual assistants. I had a lady call me today and said, hey, can you show me how to hire virtual assistants? As a matter of fact, I can. That's part of what I do. I show you how to use these virtual assistants and other people to do the things that you were doing. And if you want to know how to do those things, I would invite you to be a part of my next business accelerator. It starts this Thursday, and I'm going to take you through 8 hours of live coaching with me and other people just like you to show you exactly how to do that. If you like the things that you've learned here with Hank today, just imagine getting 8 hours of this over the next month. Me showing you how to work yourself out of the business, out of the daily operations without selling it, so that you can go do what you really, really, really want to do. Go to exitwithoutexiting.com. I'm actually going to put this in the chat window. So go look right now, click on that link, go check it out. Make sure that you sign up. I'm even going to give you, for attending this today, I'm going to give you a free coupon for $500 off. So you get $500 off this one that starts on Thursday. So go to exitwithoutexiting.com, check it out. Come into my business accelerator that's coming up. I know Hank has been instrumental in helping me with the language around that. So Hank, you got any comments you want to make about my pitch to get into the business accelerator?
Great call to action.
Well, thank you. I've learned from the best. Hank. Well, man, cheers to you on the cigar and a little bit of bourbon on a Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for being here, for doing this. And for everybody out there, thank you for joining in, for watching this. And I hope that you will accelerate your business. Tune in again next time. I'll see you later.